Hey everybody, it's Jamie Casarda here, your holistic pet mentor. And what that means to all of you is that I am a person who loves to share holistic pet care options and help guide you on ways you can take care of your pet at home more naturally. I love to give tips and tricks about great nutrition and things that we can feed to promote a healthy, long life for our pets. And also how to utilize your essential oils so that you can use them to promote your pet's health and to help certain systems in their body if they're needing a little added support. And also tips and tricks on what kind of foods we can use, superfoods like coconut oil and bone broth, the two of my favorite, ways we can utilize that, best practices. And we know that each pet is unique and their plan is individualized. And some of you are dealing with pets that have chronic health conditions. Some of you have brand new pets and you just want to start them on a more natural way of taking care of them. You just want to take a different approach to what you maybe have done before, or maybe you've always been into natural pet rearing. But either way, whatever the reason is, I am here to support you on that journey, someone where you can bounce ideas off of. I'm not your average pet care provider. I am a person who has gained a lot of experience through real life situations. I was a veterinary technician for 12 years. I ran an animal shelter for 5 years. I helped develop and lead an animal rescue and response team. I helped develop a curriculum for an animal technician program at a teaching school. So these are things that I've learned along the way. And I've learned about holistic healthcare for the last 5 years and really just transformed my health with it and helped thousands of people and thousands of animals go a more holistic approach for their life and for their pet care. So hey, Janet, thanks. Hi, I'm glad you're here. So this is something I'm super passionate about, and I know that a lot of you want to hear about the essential oils. Am I right? You want to learn how to use these essential oils safely for your pets. And of course, yes, I want to keep sharing that. You're going to hear a lot about that as we continue on with this group, this page. It's not even a group, it's a page, because I want it to be open. I want you to be able to share it. I want you to be able to invite people to come here. I want it to be a place where people can find out more about this wherever they are, and it's not so exclusive. But one day we may have an exclusive group, and if that's something you're interested in, make sure you let me know about that. But what I want to really focus on today is, we can add in things. We can do things like essential oils. We can do herbal supplements. We can do things like that. But if we don't have the nutrition right, if we aren't feeding a balanced diet, or maybe we're feeding dry kibble still, okay? And for those of you that are, highly encouraged that you take a deeper look into getting your pet off a dry kibble. And I know it's challenging, and I'm not here to judge. But if that's something that you're open to, I will be happy to help you work through that, okay? It does take some determination, especially if your pet is very used to having a dry kibble. Also, if dry kibble is the only thing you can do, let's go over some other options. Let's go over some ways that maybe you can supplement a little bit of some fresh food in with the dry kibble and help to support a little bit better. Some phytonutrients, some real meat, and you can see a difference just doing that. Or even switching around from a dry kibble that you might be feeding onto something a little better quality. But either way, I will work with you no matter where you are in this process. But I highly encourage a raw homemade diet. And so I'm going to give you guys some tips. This is really great information, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Hi, Sarah. I'm glad Sarah's here too. And I know there's all different levels. And so even for those of you who are maybe feeding a freeze-dried, or you're feeding a commercial raw, or maybe you're feeding canned, I want to give you some tips. This is a way that you can even transition onto more raw homemade, right? So go ahead, get your pen and paper. Hi, Stephanie and Kenneth. I'm not sure which one of you is on here, but hello, I'm glad you're here. Get a piece of paper. Look at all my notes. I'm not going to go over all of that, but I'm going to give you guys some really good information because I love you. Hey, Susan. I'm glad you are here. This will help Buddy too. So I love you guys. I love your pets. I haven't met an animal that I haven't fallen in love with. That's what drives me to do this. So All right, here's really great information on how you can figure out what portions, how much meat protein, how much bone, how much organ meat, how much veggies should your dog be getting. Now, as you can see in this broadcast, I'm really focusing on dogs right now because cats, they're a different creature, right? So they have some slightly different modifications. It's not huge, but they are different, right? They are obligate carnivores, whereas our dogs are not obligate carnivores. They actually, even though they're more carnivorous, they can handle a little bit of vegetable, right? Whereas cats, they really don't have any nutritional requirements for veggies. It doesn't mean that we can't give them some fermented stuff or add in some things to help their gut or to get probiotics into them, but they don't need it like our dogs do, right? Our dogs need a little bit of vegetable material, and this is how you can figure it out. I'm going to give you the percentages so you have a good picture in mind when you're going about making a homemade diet, okay? You ready for this? Are you ready to write this down? If not, you can come back, watch the replay, and make sure you write this down. All right, so you're going to rotate different types of meat, protein, and vegetables. Just keep that in mind with your raw feeding guidelines. So this is for all dogs, okay? So this is where this is a great base no matter what dog you're dealing with or, the size of the dog. So 50% of their meal, 50% of their diet is muscle meat. So make sure at least half is whole muscle meat. Okay, 10% is organ meat. So that can be liver, that can be kidneys, okay? That can be heart. You can have a little bit of each, but 10% of their diet is organ meat. 15% is bone. They must have bone for the calcium and phosphorus ratios. You've got to have some bone material in there. 15% bone. If you go too high, they will get constipated. If you go too low, they'll become deficient in calcium, okay? 20% is full spectrum color of vegetables. So we're looking at about 20 to 30% at most of fruits and veggies, all right? So 20% full spectrum color of veggies. And I'm going to give you some tips today specifically on adding in the veggies because this is a fun one, right? 5% fruit. Don't give them too much fruit. They'll get diarrhea. That's my tip there. And when we choose fruit, we want to use fruit that's low glycemic fruit. And that's typically our berries. So you can use blueberries, cranberries. Love cranberries for our pets. Dogs and cats can have some fermented cranberries, and blueberries and strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. These are all high in phytonutrients, right? They're high in antioxidants. They're low in their glycemic response, so it's not going to cause a blood sugar spike. And plus, you're giving about 5% of their diet. So that's really little bit, okay? And you got to make sure they have some essential fatty acids built in there, such as coconut oil as a treat, some marine phytoplankton. Love that for the essential fatty acids. It helps with that omega ratio, keeping that in balance. Something you can add in. Seaweed is also a good option. Krill oil, that's something that we offer through doTERRA. They have a really awesome XE Omega soft gel that you can give to dogs as well. I mean, I take it for my own health, but it's great for our dogs too. And you can give it based on the size of your dog. Any fish oil that's low on the food chain, but just make sure whatever fish oil you're using, that it's low on the fish chain, the food chain, and that it's a really high quality, that it's sourced responsibly, that the company's doing the right thing. You typically are not going to find a high quality fish oil at, the drugstore down the street, okay, that's sitting out on a shelf. I know some people say, well, I got it from Rite Aid or wherever, and it's actually going to smell very fishy and probably go rancid or be rancid by the time they've already packaged it. So really important that you make sure that whatever fish oil you're using is a really, really good quality, okay? All right, got that. And then recreational bones. So our dogs can absolutely chew on raw bones. Just make sure it's suitable for the type of dog that you have based on the size of the dog. I'm a big fan of the raw turkey necks just because it's softer. It's a little easier for them to chew. So that's my opinion, and I've heard great things. People who are using the raw turkey necks or raw chicken necks for their dogs, and they're saying it's going great. The dogs aren't having any issues. So that's great, right? And then if you look at the specialty pet food retailers, they always have some great options. They'll have like deer antlers and things like that. So that is your ratios. Really important to write those down. But today we're going to talk about the fruit and vegetables and the best way to get them in your dog's diet and why we should get them in our dog's diet this way. Okay, so remember we said 20% full spectrum colored vegetables and 5% fruit. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So when we talk about vegetables with dogs, we want to get a wide variety of color. We want to look at from different vegetable groups, right? So we want to look at dark green lettuces, right? So our kale and spinach, great choices for our dogs, okay? Algae, any kind of, well, I say algae, seaweed. Okay, seaweed is very high in nutrition. It's dark green. It's full of good nutrition. This is a great thing to add into your pet's diet. I like to eat it as a snack. Really delicious. Okay, cabbage. You can do some cabbage. If you do too much, they might get gassy. Okay, so you want to do some cabbage, and you can use red cabbage, the purple cabbage, or regular green cabbage is fine as well. A little bit of that. You can also use zucchini, any kind of summer squash. Pumpkin is great with its nutrients. Gosh, there's so many different vegetables. Let's see. I wrote down a bunch. If you're going to use any kind of grains, first of all, dogs have no nutritional requirement for grains. So that's good news, right? You don't have to add in any grains to your dog's diet whatsoever. So they don't need rice. They don't need potatoes. Okay. A little bit of sweet potatoes, okay, because sweet potato does have some good nutrients in it, but we don't need to make that a primary thing. We can add a little bit, but they really don't have a nutritional requirement for those grains or those starches. If you are going to use any kind of grain, you want to make sure it's sprouted, because sprouted grains actually have some nutrition to them and actually have some nutritional value. But it's not something that you absolutely have to put in your dog's food. It's actually something that you want to stay away from. And the reasons we want to stay away from grains in particular is because we got some issues there. Gluten. First of all, the gluten that our dogs are trying to break down, our dogs cannot properly break it down. A lot of us people are having sensitivities to gluten because it's tearing up our gut lining, because the gluten bonds have become so tight due to the modifications. They did a mutation, is the best way to explain it, of our green crops. And so this mutation, supposedly, and this was back in, I think it was in the 1970s, I'd have to double check that date, but they did this mutation to the genes of our wheat crops to make them more hardy, more drought resistant, more bug resistant. And what happened is it made the gluten bonds triple bonds instead of double bonds. There's a whole documentary on that. So you guys might want to check that out if you aren't familiar with the challenges a lot of people are facing with gluten. And it's the same issue with our dogs. They cannot break it down as well. And so what happens is it actually tears up the gut lining. So that's what we're seeing a lot in our pets. We're also seeing that pets have a higher toxic load and have a lot of gut trauma, not just from the gluten, but also because their pet food turns to sugar because they have a lot of starch and they have a lot of grains in there, which is converting into sugar very quickly, which is high in inflammation. They also can have gut trauma due to over-vaccination from topical spot-on treatments every single month. Yes, if they've ever been on an antibiotic, if they've ever been on an NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, if they've ever been on a steroid, okay? These are all things that can cause gut trauma, that can deteriorate the gut. And so I have some really awesome clients. I have some amazing people that I talk to that they have changed everything over. They're doing all the right things. And their pet is still, some of them, their pets are still dealing with some issues. And the reason that is because their pet's gut still needs to heal. So you can do all the foods right, but if their gut hasn't had time to heal and they're still getting topical spot-on products, they're still getting vaccines, they're still using antibiotics, or they're using NSAIDs, their pet is going to continually have gut trauma. Okay, and so what we need to do is first work on helping to support the gut lining and healing. And there's definitely lots of things that we can do to take care of that. And then we need to switch to a homemade diet, right? And then use as much organic as possible so we can decrease the amount of glyphosate going into our pets, right? And of course, take out the grains, because the grains are going to cause a lot of gut damage. So really important to note that. I didn't want to do this broadcast without pointing that out. Super important. Okay. Now let's talk about the vegetables. We talked about some of the different types of vegetables. There's a wide variety of things. Somebody mentioned earlier they're giving broccoli to their dog. Fantastic. Broccoli is amazing. Green beans, great choice. There's so many good things. Kelp, you can give them kelp. Let's see, I don't know why my brain doesn't want to list off all the veggies right now. I can't even think of them all, but there's so many great veggies. And we know that the main thing we need to stay away from with dogs is probably they're not sure about avocados. So probably don't want to give them a lot of avocado. You could probably give them a little bit, not the skin. The inside of a ripe avocado, a little bit would be okay. We stay away from grapes and we stay away from raisins. And of course, anything with xylitol. I mean, we're not going to give them anything like that. Okay, so you guys ready? This is how we should prepare our vegetables. You should pulverize them. So we want them room temperature is best. And we want to smash them as much as possible in order to get that cellulose, the cell walls, to break down on the veggies, okay? Because that's where our pets have trouble. And so I actually got this information from Dr. Ian Billinghurst, and he was talking about how he was evaluating some research where they gave dogs chunks of vegetables versus juicing the vegetables and giving them some of the pulp versus fermented vegetables and things like that. And they said that raw vegetables by far absolutely best, better than cooking. However, I will note that there are some holistic veterinarians that are saying that certain dogs with certain health conditions may actually process lightly cooked food better. And for instance, I have some dogs that I'm helping that have Cushing's, and slightly cooked vegetables, now not heavily cooked, but lightly cooked vegetables, cut and chopped down very well, is working well for them. However, most dogs will do better, have a better result, and absorb more nutrients from raw vegetables. So first of all, raw. Second of all, they need to be juiced or pulverized. Okay, so you can keep the fiber, but it needs to be broken down. Another way you can do that is fermenting. Huge fan of fermented vegetables, because this is how a dog would, if you look at the history of where dogs come from and how their bodies are designed to process cellulose and vegetables. It's from the insides of an herbivore. Okay, so that would be a fermented, highly broken up vegetable material. And that's what dogs would typically take in naturally. All right, so a way we can simulate this is we can actually ferment our own veggies. Here's an example. So these are, this was my great friend, Maria, is awesome at fermenting vegetables. And as you can see, these are chopped really, really well. You want them chopped finely. So this is actually a good example of a finely chopped vegetable. And she did put some whole cranberries in here, and there's carrots, and there's cabbage, okay? And this is fermented. And this would be a great thing to add into a pet's diet. But again, I would only do, why did I say 10? I would do 20% or less, right? And I would also pulverize some greens, some dark greens, and mix those in as well. Okay, so fermented, raw, pulverized, juiced is the best way to get vegetables into your pet's diet. And the reason we want some vegetables in there for our dogs is because of the phytonutrients. It can help bring down inflammation in the joints, right? It can help them with their stomach health. Now, there are some raw feeders out there that feel that dogs don't need any vegetable, and they can absolutely get away with that. Don't get me wrong, you can absolutely get away with feeding an all meat, bone, organ type diet. However, if a dog has any kind of inflammatory issue, they're also going to need these type of nutrients to help bring down that inflammation. And it's just not something that they can get from a meat diet alone. So there's nutrients that dogs will benefit from that are in vegetable material, but they can't get away with an all vegetable diet, whereas they may be able to get away with an all meat diet. I hope that makes sense to all of you. But when you have that great balance of about 20% vegetable, 5% fruit, and you're feeding it raw, pulverized, or fermented, you're going to have better absorption. So what I was saying earlier was Dr. Ian Billinghurst actually looked at research showing that if you fed them chunks of raw vegetable, they weren't absorbing the nutrients. They were analyzing the fecal material, and they saw that a lot of those vegetables went undigested, and the dogs just weren't getting any of the nutrition from it. But when they pulverized it or fermented these vegetables, the dogs were then absorbing the nutrients from it. So it just shows that's how their body works. That is the best way to get the vegetables into them. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting that vegetable material. So if you're feeding them a frozen broccoli or frozen blueberries or something like that, it's very unlikely that they're going to break that down and digest it and absorb any of those nutrients. So I want you guys to go ahead and incorporate those veggies. But once I learned there's a way that we can incorporate them to ensure that they're gonna get the nutrients from those veggies, I wanted to share it with you. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, they need to know this, because I thought the chewing action would be enough, but apparently, and this is based on research, that just giving them a chunk of carrot or giving them some blueberries, they're not gonna chew it enough to actually absorb the nutrition that they need. So if we pulverize it, if we blend it up for them first, or ferment it, which is even better because you get those good bacteria to help support their gut, then they're going to have an even better result. They're going to actually absorb those nutrients that you're hoping that they get, and you should see your pet thrive even more. You're going to start to see the results from that. So I hope that information is helpful for you. I'm going to keep this shorter, and I hope to do more of these lives where we can just focus on a particular information that day. And feel free to let me know what you think about this. Share it out if you have some people who are interested in learning more about a whole meat diet. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.